A close friend of mine has been singing the praises of Clair Obscur Expedition 33 for a while, and I still haven't gotten around to playing it until just now. And that's for one simple reason. I've been bad about keeping up with the series, and I had to play Expeditions 1 through 32 first, and now that that's taken care of, I can finally talk about my first impressions of this one. Imagine my surprise when I wrote down that little joke before I actually started this game and then found out that the expeditions actually count down and not up, so it doesn't really work in that way, but oh well. This is a pretty addicting turn-based RPG right here. And you know, I've seen people compare it to Xenoblade, which is of course the best JRPG series still coming out right now, and Xenoblade 3 is a masterpiece video game, 10 out of 10, no notes. Although now that I say that, Clair Obscur reminds me a little more of Xenosaga with how good its cutscenes are, but I digress. Expedition 33 is a turn-based RPG where every input has an associated quick-time event that you need to time another input during. Which is definitely something Xenoblade also does, but it also reminds me a lot of Super Mario RPG. When an enemy attacks, you can time a dodge to fully avoid the damage with a reasonably forgiving window, or you can parry, which is a lot stricter on the timing, but lets you do a powerful counter so long as you're able to parry every single hit in the sequence. It's very all or nothing in that way, and I love that stuff. It makes every boss attack this little burst of stress that asks you to focus up for a second, but then you get to take a breather when you get booted back to the menu. Unless you really screwed up and got deep sixed. It's kinda similar to that period of time where you're waiting for a boss to attack you in a Souls-like, and in that same vein, just like a Souls-like, it feels great when you've memorized all the boss's attacks and can react accordingly and everything goes super smoothly. Oh, and I really like how the game clarifies if the upcoming attack is going to be fast or slow. It's just enough of a heads up to help you learn the animation timing a little bit faster. Getting rewarded with more experience for not taking damage is much appreciated too. That's what I like most about the more active gameplay, but I've also been pretty impressed by the more stat and strategy focused stuff too. Particularly the fact that every character has their own unique mechanic to work with. I like Lune's mechanic a lot right now, and I don't have a ton of party members so far anyway, but her elemental spells are powered up by using resources granted by using spells of a different element. And when you combine that with specific enemy weaknesses with certain elements, you get kind of a cool decision-making process where you're planning out your best rotation for a given boss or deciding when you want to maximize your DPS around like a burst phase of their mechanics. The Pictos, I'm a fan of those too. They're just the right level of game-changing and you don't have to wait very long to get interesting ones. Like one that gives you 3 AP for killing an enemy, which then makes encounters with lots of enemies really fun and fast as hell because you're constantly able to do more and more skills after just getting that first one kill. The one that gives you a 1-turn damage buff just for doing your basic attack is fun too, and I like that you level these things up kind of like Materia in Final Fantasy VII. And speaking of another JRPG, and one of the many that inspired this game, that's about as good of a segue as I'm going to get into sharing that I'm kind of not the biggest fan of stuff that is super directly referential to other works. Like the Persona 5 style layout of the combat menu here. I know that's kind of the appeal with this game as a love letter to JRPGs, and the story behind the development is super neat from what I've heard of it, but just to me it's a little deflating for the first battle to start up and think, cool, it's like Persona 5, and not cool, it's Expedition 33's menu for the first time. I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain, I guess. I'm not trying to say that it's a terrible decision or whatever, I just prefer my genre references more general, like going, oh, this area is like a little world map, like in a JRPG, that's neat. It's hard to explain, but you know what I mean. I was told to avoid hearing as much about the story as possible, and I'm going to hold true to that for the specifics here in this video too, but I will say I'm a big fan of the wide variety of genres the story is able to dip its toes into while still maintaining the overall tone to ground everything. Oh, and I forgot to mention Gustav is portrayed by Charlie Cox. I was a full 2 hours into this game thinking, wow, this dude's voice is so familiar. He kind of sounds like Daredevil. Lo and behold, behold, it is Daredevil, and the only video game Charlie Cox has even been in as of now. And that alone is enough to keep me seeing what the rest of this wacky game has in store. It's funny that the costume you get for defeating the mime enemy is the way it is too, for the same reason. I haven't really talked about how pretty the game is yet, and well, if you've been looking at the screen at any point so far, you've seen that for yourself. The aesthetic is great, but I also can't help but love how excessively it leans into how French it is. Am I allowed to say that? I am not French, and I was born in the 90s, so I'm really struggling, and I think that might be problematic for me to say. Politically incorrect, but I love it, so you know what? I think it's fine. And we just worked through that right now in this moment. Okay, I think that means it's time for me to stop recording. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.